Hey, everybody, it is Camille Aiko, and I hope that you are living the life that you love spiritually, mentally, physically, and financially. So, as you all are coming on, go ahead and drop a 1 if you're catching this live, and drop a 2 if you're catching this on replay. So, as I'm doing this live, you might see me looking back and forth between two cameras. Or see me looking in different places. It's because I have two cameras going, but I'm excited to be with you all on today, and I'm extremely excited because this is the first time I've ever gone live on my business page. And so for those of you who don't know, I founded a company called Infuse LLC, and it's all about transforming lives through love. So hey, everyone who is hopping on, go ahead and drop a 1 if you're catching this live, drop a 2 if you're catching this on replay. And so what we are going to be starting is a book discussion, and it's going to be a series on the book called Are All Your Pieces in Place? And this is definitely a book that I feel like everybody should read, just because it drops so much knowledge on you to help you understand who you are and why you function the way that you do and where you are in your life. So I know that we're a few minutes behind on today, so I had some technical difficulties, so we will make sure that we work on that so that for the rest of the days we are getting started on time. So let me ask you guys a few questions. Have you ever feel like you're stuck? You ever felt like, I'm really excelling in one area of my life, but I'm kind of, struggling in this other area of my life, right? I think we've all been there. We've all been at a place where it's like, why? Or maybe we feel like everything is just going wrong. We just feel completely overwhelmed with our lives, and we're trying to figure out, like, how do we really get this thing called life down? How do we really manage it? How do we really work it so that we can truly live the life that we love, right? That's what I always say when I get on the videos. Like, I hope that you're living the life that you love, spiritually, mentally, physically, and financially. How do you do that? And so this series is really going to help us to tap into our inner selves, to get us to that place of understanding how we can truly live that out. So I've got my notes here from the book, and we're just going to go ahead and jump into it, okay? So the book Are All Your Pieces in Place is by Glenda Feilen, okay? And so when we're talking about what are these pieces, what are the pieces that we need to have in place to create the life that we want, to live the life that we want? And really, it's our physical self. All right, so there's 5 parts to the body that Glenda is suggesting that we all have, that we all need to get in check in order to live the life that we want. So our physical self is number 1. Our mental self is another part. Our emotional self, our vibrational self, and our spiritual self. Okay, and so the physical self, of course, it's the outside, it's the body, it's what you can see, it's what you can touch, it's what you look at when you look in the mirror. The mental self is the part of the body that is constantly making decisions about your life, all right? And then the emotional self is constantly telling you how you feel about the decisions that you have made, okay? The vibrational self is electrically, okay, radiating your feelings outwardly. And we're going to talk about all of these more in depth. Of course, we're not going to get all into it today because this is a series, right? And then 5th is the spiritual self, which supplies inspiration, intuition, and enlightenment, okay? Now, most of us really focus on our physical selves, right? We'll spend time in the mirror, we're looking at our face, we'll spend time doing our hair. Some of us might go to the gym, and even though you may not go to the gym, you know that exercise is important. So even if you don't go to the gym, maybe you exercise outside, or maybe you just have the knowledge that exercise will do you good, right? And so take a look at yourself in the mirror. Later, after you get off this, just look at yourself in the mirror. What do you see? Right? Most of us will begin to name things physically, but there are so much more to each and every one of us than the physical being. And a lot of times what is happening is that we are starving the rest of who we are. We'll put into our physical being, but we are starving the rest of ourselves, okay? And so each part of us, our spiritual self, our physical self, our emotional self, our vibrational self, our every part, right? we need to make sure that we are nourishing each part of the body with the proper food and also exercising it, okay? So the next few days, again, we're going to be discussing the food that we need for this mental self, for the spiritual self, for the physical self, for the vibrational self, for the spiritual self. We're going to be looking at these 5 areas and saying, okay, what is the proper food of nourishment? And how do we exercise those parts of the body so that we can flourish and truly begin to live our best life, right? Everybody's out here with the hashtag like living my best life and all that, when most of us aren't. We're only posting our best life on social media. But how can we really get to the point where we truly are living our best life on and off social media? Now, really, when we get off here, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. And I want you to list the pros and cons, because some of you might not be feeling me yet. You might be like, Camille, what are you talking about? This is some hocus pocus stuff that you're talking about, right? No, absolutely not. Because once you get past the physical and you begin to list pros and cons about yourself, you're going to be able to understand that the things that you're beginning to list about yourself are not the physical things that you can see, but it's the things on the inner self. And those are the things that we need to begin to truly work on, because most people find that when they begin to make a list of the pros and cons about themselves, that they find that the negative side, the cons, become a little bit longer than the pros. And so this is where we then have that unbalance in our lives, and we're feeling like, okay, I'm cool over here. Like maybe you think, you look good physically, but here mentally you're struggling. All right. So we're made up of several different parts, not just one part. We're not just mental beings. We're not just spiritual. We're not just vibrational. We're not just emotional, but all of these parts to who we are affect the other part of us. Okay. They have a major influence. And when we don't cater to that, when we don't feed it, when we don't nourish it, we understand that our life is then out of balance. We understand, and maybe some of us don't even understand. That's the thing. We're all confused. We're depressed, right? So we have to recognize that beyond our physical self, that we have to make sure that we equally take care of all the other parts of who we are, right? I mean, just think about the number of people, and I'm sorry for my Infused Love page. I'm giving most of my attention here to my personal page because I see people popping up. But y'all, I'm trying to balance 2 cameras. But, we're confused, we're depressed, right? We're stifled, we're overwhelmed, we're being complacent, we're procrastinating, and we seem burdened. It's just like we can't move beyond where we are. Why can't we move beyond where we are right now? Why am I stuck in this job and it's sucking the life out of me? Or why is my marriage failing? Or why am I in this horrible relationship? Why do I keep getting into the same unhealthy relationships over and over and over again? Like what is it that we're doing in this life? And we can have a pretty face all you want. You can be cute, you can be handsome, you can be whatever. But if you aren't working on the internal you will always have these battles. Right? So a lot of times what is happening that we don't recognize is that we are starving ourselves in one area of our life and we are not exercising it. And so we are living in survival mode. We are literally in survival mode in that area of our life, right? I mean, I'm telling you, and I know I've said this in other lives before, but literally I can scroll my news feed any day and I see someone who's like, you know what, forget this life. I'm tired. I'm fed up. But seemingly on the outside, they're perfectly fine. They look okay. They keep themselves groomed. They go to work every day. They come home. They make some income, right? They've got a roof over their head, but there's something in their life that they just can't get. And because of that, it's like, I don't understand what I need to do in my life in order to push forward, right? And so this is why you have to feed yourself with the proper nourishment. I mean, even think about this. There was a pastor, and it's been kind of circling around on the internet, but he was a pastor of a mega church. He's 30 years old. He's married. He's got 3 or 4 kids. He ends up committing suicide. Now, you would think that a pastor who seemingly is so successful to the outside, like you have a flourishing church and you have a wife who's beautiful, and he wasn't a bad looking guy and his kids are really cute, you would think that he would be okay, right? But there was something even still that was starving within him, and he was in survival mode to the point that he couldn't take it anymore, and he committed suicide, right? This is why we have to understand that it is so much more than just going out here and grinding and hustling every day. But there is more to our lives that we need to achieve and work on within ourselves if we're truly going to be the people that is our best self. Okay? And not only who is our best self right now, but be the best that we can become. So now, I gave you the example of the pastor. The next example would be that always is just like so fresh in my mind is Robin Williams. Robin Williams, he was the actor. Many of us know him in roles such as Mrs. Doubtfire, but I believe it was back in 2014 he committed suicide, right? And so again, this is a person that you would look at and say, okay, on the outside you have it all together. You have the wife, you have the kids, you have the house, you have the career, you have the life. So there has to be something, guys, that is out of balance, and we have to understand this. So this is really what we're talking about in this first discussion, is that we have to understand that we have to give quality time into feeding all of who we are and not just some of who we are. We can't just say, because I look like I have it together on the outside, that I'm okay. No, you have to really get it together on the inside. You really have to go out and get the help that you need, right? You have to do the personal development that you need so that you can become the person that you want to become. So Robin Williams, he had this quote, and he said, the saddest people are always trying to make people happy because they know what it's like to feel worthless, and they don't want anyone else to feel like that, right? So Robin Williams, deep inside, he was still suffering with some type of trauma, something on the inside of him that made him feel worthless, that then made him want to take his own life. Guys, we get in these situations, or sometimes life happens because of other people who are in our lives, and we never overcome this trauma. We're still dealing with the mental battles, and then we're still dealing with the feelings that caused us to have these thoughts. And then because of that, we're vibrating off the wrong things. And then the next thing you know, your life is spinning out of control. And bam, you're in depression. Bam, you're committing suicide. Bam, just life is hectic. It's crazy. You're overwhelmed and you don't know how you're going to make it through, right? So, or even maybe it's not towards yourself, but I read an article, and the couple, all right, there's a couple in Florida. They actually killed the ex-girlfriend of the husband. Okay? They killed the ex-girlfriend of the husband. They cut her body up with a chainsaw, tried to pour acid on her body to make the body, dissipate. When that didn't work, they took the body over to the sister-in-law's house, and they ended up throwing the body into a pond where alligators were so that the alligators would eat the body. Y'all can't tell me something is not wrong, right? And they said that the husband had got into the argument with the ex-girlfriend because of their children. So on the outside, it could look like, they're normal people. Physically, they look fine. They were groomed. They looked okay. They seemed like they took care of their children. They loved their children. But mentally, okay, something was not right up in here. And those feelings and those emotions and all of that overcame them and made them do some crazy things. Like, we can allow our life, when we are starving different areas of who we are, we can allow our life to spin completely out of control and do things that we never thought that we would ever do when we aren't taking care of ourselves, when we don't have all of our pieces in place, right? So it's safe to say that that couple did not have all of their pieces in place. So my question to you all is, are you ready to get your pieces in place? Are you ready to stop making decisions that you're regretting, or that you're looking back on and saying, oh my goodness, like, why in the world did I do that? Or thoughts or feelings, or not being spiritually connected like you need to be. Are you ready to move forward? Because if so, then we got some work to do in these next few days, right? So what I want you to keep in mind is that your physical self is just a vehicle to take you where you're going. Your physical self is just your vehicle to take you to where you're going. And when we understand that, we would spend a lot less time trying to work on who we are on the outside and do more of the inside. Because the more you do on the inside, it will radiate to the outside anyway, right? Okay. So let's go ahead. We're going to move into the mental self on today. We're going to talk about the nourishment in the food that Glenda Feilen, the author of All Your Pieces in Place, talks about. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about how to really exercise ourselves mentally to make sure that our mental self is in place. So again, this is what we have to understand, is that the only thing that you can see is your physical self. You can't see your mental self. But how you can get a good gauge of what your mental self is like is by examining the life around you. Because your mental self has affected everything that is around you. Your mental self, you know, it affects your family. It affects your relationships. It affects your prosperity. It affects your level of happiness. So you are supposed to be, remember this, you are supposed to be exactly where you are right now because you have made the exact decisions that you have made up until this point. And so if you think about where you are, you think about your relationships, you think about where you are, you think about your income, and these are just a few things, right, to kind of gauge it and analyze where you are mentally. But when you begin to really look at these things, if you're not happy with where you are, then you have to say, what have I been thinking? What has my mental self, what have I been doing? Have I been nourishing my mental self properly in order to get the results that I want? And if you're not happy, all right, so we have some technical difficulties up here. Okay, we're back. All right, now, here's the thing. When we are looking at the food for your mental self, the food for your mental self is your thoughts. The food for your mental self is your thoughts. And your food can be just like in the natural. In the natural, we can have junk food or we can have some healthy food. And everything that you put into your body is having an impact on your physical self. Well, guess what? It's the same way mentally, that you can have mental food that is junk mental food, or you can have healthy mental food, and that is impacting every aspect of your life. Okay, so let's really break down the mind for a second. For those of you who don't know, hey Kathy, absolutely, thanks so much. Okay, so now with, what was I saying? The mind. Okay, breaking down the mind. There's two different parts to the mind, all right? We have the conscious part of the mind that is always thinking. The conscious mind is always actively thinking, all right? And then we have the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is the creative mind. The creative mind is essentially, it never stops. And what makes those thoughts in the creative mind is everything that we've put into it from infancy up until about the age 8, it's really saturated. Now the subconscious mind is always getting, different ideas with our environment and what we're listening to and what we're hearing. And so we are essentially creating our reality with our subconscious thoughts. Your subconscious thoughts are constantly creating your life. So that is why it's so important that we guard our minds. Okay? We have to guard our minds and what we're thinking about, because those subconscious thoughts are impacting us whether we realize it or not. I mean, just think about, even music. Like, we can listen to our favorite song over, and sometimes it's not our favorite song, it's just the only thing playing on the radio, right? And you're listening to it over and over and over again, and even though you may not even like that song, it is subconsciously in your brain. You may not even know the lyrics, but guess what? Subconsciously it's picked up. So you wonder why you might have some of the addictions that you have. You may wonder why you might have the desire to do some of the things that you do. Well, it's because you have allowed your subconscious mind to pick up on all of this. And so now your subconscious mind is just living out what you have fed it. Your thoughts, whether they are intentional or unintentional, are creating your mental life. So you have to think, where am I? And am I happy with where I am? Because that's going to help you to identify what types of thoughts you've been putting inside of yourself. Okay? And so, let's see here. Let me read my notes. You know what, guys? I forgot to bring my book down. I'm doing a book discussion and forgot the book. But nonetheless, I've got my little notes here, but I just can't read some of the passages that I was going to read. So, when we really think about this, the mind, it's an amazing thing, because with the mind, the subconscious brain, it cannot differentiate a good from bad thought. Like, it just takes whatever you have given it and then it runs with it. So whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it's going to help you or whether it's going to harm you, the fact of the matter is that it's in your brain, and now you're working off of that. Okay? Even let's take the shooting that happened down at the game tournament, right? Now what they're trying to say, whether we agree or disagree, whatever the case is, right? But what they're trying to say is this child was troubled. He had issues going on. And so now because of that, he wants to go and shoot people up. That's how it works. That's how it works. Now, I do believe, everybody needs to take some responsibility. But the thing of the matter is that what this person has fed himself, that is now what he is acting out. Where people will be like, oh my goodness, I would never believe that little Susie would go and shoot up everybody and kill people. I would never believe. But guess what? It's not based on what you believe. It's based on what we've been feeding ourselves. It's been based on the food that you are feeding yourself. So what thoughts are you feeding your mental self? Because that has gotten you to where you are right now. Right now in your life, your thoughts have gotten you to where you are. And so we have got to guard our thoughts. Gosh, I'm so upset with myself that I don't have the book in here. Okay, but listen. When we have thoughts that are toxic, we have to begin to purge that toxicity out of our lives. We can reprogram our subconscious mind by having conscious thoughts, okay? By being in tune. So many of us are just mindlessly walking around in our life, and we're not really in tune with what is happening in our life, because we're not consciously thinking about what is going on. We have to begin to consciously think about, what are we programming our subconscious mind with, when you understand that it's your subconscious mind that's the creativity, and that will then go on autopilot and create the life that you're living. So we have to guard our thoughts. Let me move my leg. All right. Now, not only the thoughts, but the people who create the thoughts in our lives, we have to begin to even purge them out as well, right? We cannot allow people who create toxic environments to come and take over our lives. We just can't do it. We've got to begin to let them go. We've got to detox them. We've got to release them, because it's not going to help us to get where we want to be, right? Okay, so, and we're about to wrap it up here. I don't want to keep y'all here all day. But let me see here in my notes. The subconscious, and we already kind of talked about that. So the subconscious mind makes no distinction between the constructive and destructive. It works by what you give it. And then the other thing is, when we're talking about, okay, how do we really create these lives that we want to live? How do we truly be the best that we want to be? Is for many of us, we have to recreate our self-image. We have to say, okay, take a look at self and see what thoughts you have put in your mind. Maybe you've always said, well, I'm a procrastinator. And that's the thing that you've always said. I'm a procrastinator. I'm a procrastinator. I'm always this or I'm always that. Or I'm never going to amount to anything. You've allowed the thoughts that other people have said about you to become your truth. And that's what you're then acting out. So in order to reprogram your self-image, you have to change your thoughts about who you are. You have to begin to declare things differently in your life. You have to say to yourself, you know what, I am, and then you feel in what you want to be, so that can program your subconscious mind to begin to allow you to live that out. So for example, when I was in college, there was this young man who always came to all classes. I don't care if it was University 101, like where they just give you the basics about college and how to survive, right? He would come dressed in a suit because he wanted to be a lawyer. And so he dressed for the job. All throughout our undergrad, he came in a suit. He had his briefcase because mentally he was creating the fact that he was already a lawyer. He already saw himself as a lawyer. He acted, he carried himself that he was already a lawyer. He believed that he was going to become a lawyer. He excelled his activity, met his thoughts. And guess what? He's now a lawyer. And many of us, we claim that we want to be these things, but we don't really have the thought process behind it. We allow fear, we allow our insecurities, we allow our doubts and all types of things to overcome us, even like right now. So I've told you all that I'm broadcasting live, and this is my very first time going live on my business page. Why? Because of insecurities, because of doubts, because of fears. We can't get to where we want to be if we allow those thoughts to overcome us and stop us from where it is that we are going. Okay, guys? So that's why we have to plant good thoughts into our minds, because what we think is what we are. All right? So we have to plant new self-image into our creative mind. We have to plant a new self-image into our creative mind so that then we can begin to act on that. All right? So if your life, and I've said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again because it's worth saying. If your life is out of control, your thoughts are out of control. See, this is like getting into a car and not taking control of the wheel, not putting the car in the right gear. You know, you get in the car and you just start letting the car do whatever after you've put it in drive, and you don't take control of the wheel. Guess what? It's going to end up in disaster. You all are, I am the driver of my life. You are the driver of your life. So you have to get in the front seat of your car, of your life, and begin to take control. Because if you don't, your life is going to end up in disaster. It's going to end up in unhappiness. It's going to end up in depression. It's going to end up with anxiety. It's going to end up with all of these things that aren't going to allow us to get to our destination of where we want to be. So you are the driver. Get in the driver's seat and take control of your life with conscious thoughts. Okay? You have to take control of your life with conscious thoughts, not subconscious thoughts, all right? But allow your conscious thoughts to reprogram your subconscious so you can truly be the one in charge of the life that you're living. So I'm going to leave these final words from you from the book of Are All Your Pieces in Place by Glenda Feilen. You are the result of your voluntary habitual thinking. You are the result of your voluntary habitual thinking. You are where you are because of your habits of thoughts. You are where you are because of your habits of thoughts. Control your life on earth by exercising your privilege of shaping your own thoughts. All right, guys, so that is day one. If you got any value from this, hit like, heart, share with a friend, tag a friend, any of that, okay? Maybe somebody else needs to hear this, and it's our duty to go out and help other people truly begin to live the life that they love. So again, I'm Camille Aiko, and I hope that you are living the life that you love. I will be on tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about how to exercise your mental self and really giving you some strategy and some practical ways in order to exercise your mental self. I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.